It's fadeology, like the study of fades. Okay, any type of ology is the study of, correct? So, the study of fades, which you're kind of going to learn today. So this right here is considered what he already presently have is a taper, right? Would everybody agree with that? Yeah. This is a taper fade. Why is this considered a taper fade, though? Can anybody tell me?
Just on the nape and the sides.
Right. So if it's only a taper fade, well, it's not necessarily a fade, it's a taper. A fade is something that goes and it's going to, come around and be above the occipital bone, essentially. Okay? Anything below the occipital bone would be considered a taper. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's the first identification and clarification of fading. Knowing what a fade should look like and what the characteristics of it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So if we're going to transition this taper into a fade, what we would have to do we would literally take the taper away. We would literally take the taper away and turn it into a fade, either keeping it right here below the occipital or above the occipital. Now, like my man, what's your name, my friend? Renzo mentioned the points, right? Did you hear that? So by knowing the points is another way to identify a fade. So if you, the coolest thing about fades is, like I said, knowing where it needs to be and how to place them. So if you have a good understanding of the points of a person's face, you're able to frame the face and you can place the fade wherever you want it to be. So if I wanted it to be a high fade, more likely you would start at, the temple peak point, and then you would go right around, and meet it on the other side, right? Now, and that'd be like a mid fade. A higher fade would probably be a little bit up here and go around here. South side fade would be here and up in here, right? All right? Okay, but in a low fade, which is probably one of the most common fades right now, would you everybody agree with that? Yeah. Low fades, or drop fades, another word for it. They will start at the temple peak point and go right below or meet the occipital bone or right below it. Some people call it taper fades, drop fades, low fades. It's all the same family, just different names for it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so knowing that cuts out half of the battle of learning how to fade. It's placement. Okay, any questions on that real quick before we dive into this actual haircut? Any questions on placement or fades? Anything, anybody?
So what 3 points? So like a high fade,
okay.
Point?
So what is the low fade and mid fade when you start?
Sure. So what's the difference between a low fade, and mid fade, and high fade? Great question. The difference between a low fade, and mid fade, and a high fade is depending on the placement of where you accentuate. In fact, I'll show you here. So, that's not. Y'all don't have to get my drawings already. Eraser? Cool. So if this was a head, right? That's the neck. Okay, that's gonna be the. So basically, here go the ear. Okay. So don't worry about all that. So this is gonna be. Let's just pretend that's gonna be the hairline, and that's it's gonna be the side, and it's gonna go like this, right? So. So this would be considered, if this is your temple peak point right here, right? We're gonna go here, across. That's gonna be a mid fade, okay? Now, if I wanted to take it from the temple peak point and drop it down, that's gonna be considered a low fade, okay? Does that make sense? And if I wanted to be a high fade, I can either come here, and just go probably right around to the crown, almost the crown, or right around the crown. Now that's a more of a difficult fade, but this would be like a military or a high fade. A lot of military people like that, right? Now, like we talked about earlier, if you wanted a south side fade, right? Like a Boosie fade. And that's probably, to me, one of the most difficult fades, but you would definitely come right up here at the top. And this would be, we're gonna call that Boosie. Okay, so this is very popular down south. Okay, so depending on where you're at, depending on the area and your demographic and things like that, determines the fades and what placement is going to make your fade, dope, right? So that's what we're talking about today. Like if you don't understand the placement, you cannot give anybody a high ticket fade. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Yeah. Okay. So a lot of times people just cut and they go up, they go down, they just start here to here, but then they don't understand the placement of it. So when it's time to get to one side and the other side and matching them up, it's really not a fade. It becomes something totally different, and and you devalue your value, to that client. You lose time, you lose money, you lose opportunities, you lose your brand. And that's not what we're about, okay? I'm about time, money, brand, and value. Does that make sense? So we're just the opposite. So that's what you're gonna learn from me today. Is that cool? Fair?
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right. You can, if you could, you can probably just put it on there.
You want to do it?
Yeah. Where you going?
Is it on there right? On the bottom?
That's cool. Just keep an eye on it. That's cool. Okay. So, the most important thing to making sure you're to getting the fade before you even start is preparation. And I know y'all probably like, man, I would just hope you just start cutting, but the point is that the reason why I want to go over this is so when I'm doing this, I can actually move through the haircut and you can kind of understand what I'm doing. Is that fair? Okay, so preparation is key. Okay, now I've been in the barber industry for a very long time, so I understand all of the shortcuts, all of the mechanics of why when barbers cut in a barbershop or hairstylists, it doesn't matter what you want to call yourself, but when they're behind the chair, the mindset is I need to get this money. Is that correct? Would anybody agree with that?
Yes, sir.
I got to get to the money. So I got to get as many in, as many out. Right? Sound about right? Sound about right? So, but that's the wrong mindset to have, right? You want to always drop value. You want to drop your best cut on every person because that is the longevity of the haircut and the client, right? You want to build a relationship with your client each time. Like you said, how long have I been cutting your hair?
Since freshman year of high school.
So, and he's still a client that comes to my barbershop, okay? I don't personally cut his hair anymore, but he's in my barbershop, he's a client. He became a family client. It's, his kids and friends and all that. See what I'm saying? It's the longevity of a client is where the value is. And especially if you can give him a nice or decent haircut, okay? So that's the thing that you want to think about. And you're not thinking about, I'm the best barber, but if I can give the best work to this canvas. And the way you can do that is always having a clean canvas to start from. But like I was saying, a lot of people just want to get to the money, so they won't cut, they won't shampoo it, they won't clean it. They just cut it with grease in their hair, and that's not going to give you your best cut. Okay? So take the extra moments to get yourself a clean canvas, and then when you understand these fades, that hair is going to peel off like that. Does that make sense? And it's going to cut your time down. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So I'm going to dive in here. I've already prepped my tools before I came, but normally I would give a session on sanitation. Normally when I first start, any types of teachings. But you guys pretty efficient on sanitation, right? I mean, especially right now, that should be the main priority, right? This is going to be difficult cutting and trying to teach you with this mask, so y'all going to have to bear with me. This is a new one for me. So I need this on, right? Okay. Oh boy. Time out. I got another one.
What you looking at?
That won't be suffocating me, y'all. All right, let's try this. So what I'm gonna do with this, I'm gonna transition this taper. I like you had a really good taper on here, so I'm gonna transition this taper into taper fade, okay? And I'm gonna show you how you can do that. And like I said, it doesn't matter any type of haircut, any type of hair, doesn't matter the demographic, doesn't matter the nationality of an individual. It's really all about placement, technique, and strategy. Okay? Okay? So I'm gonna comb this out, and you always want to have you want to start with the end in mind. So as I'm doing this, you should be doing this hair and scalp analysis, right? You're doing that, but as I'm doing that, like I've already established what I want to do. We're gonna do a taper fade, right? Okay. Now, would everybody agree that's a pretty difficult cut, right? Right? Y'all gotta talk to me now.
Yeah.
Okay. So y'all want to see that? So it's a difficult cut because it's such a small area to cut and to fade and to all of those things. So with that being said, you have to understand this placement very well, okay? And knowing your tools. What Ms. Jules, what tools are they using right now? Can anybody tell me what tools you use for the most part of the school?
Part of the clippers.
Yeah.
Wall.
Wow.
Seniors.
Which ones?
Seniors, magic clips, detailers.
What's the school standard? So, like what everybody uses.
Like seniors and detailers.
And magic
Seniors,
clips.
detailers, and BGRCs.
Magic clips.
Okay. So what do you guys have the most trouble with working with as a unit, would you say? Probably the adjustables? Adjustables, something like this, right? Yeah. Yeah. But you have magic clips, right?
Yeah.
They're the same thing, they're adjustables. But it's just, and these are Andes, the same thing. Okay. So I do most of the fair pay with that, so you can really understand what I'm doing. Is that fair? Okay. So I'm gonna go, as I start this haircut, I'm gonna go entirely against probably everything you guys learned, okay? But bear with me because there's a method to my madness. And again, take from me whatever you like and you can make it your own. You don't necessarily have to do my exact techniques, but just understand that you make it your own. So I know they teach don't ever put a line in the head. So if you don't put a line in, you don't have to take one out. You've heard that before, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I work the opposite because I think of life like you need a GPS in life, right? In order to get here, the first time you came to this barber school, you may not know where it was at. So would you probably type in here, hey, GPS to College of Hair Design, correct? Mm-hmm. You know, so that's kind of how I take every haircut. I've set my GPS. I already know what I want. I'll start with the end in mind. My target is to give him a taper fade. So I already got that in mind. So I'm going to do that step by step to get there. By me doing that, I'm going to start off with a guideline. And I'm just going to put a line in there. And as I do this, like you're going to see, the reason why I'm doing this is I want to know where my fade is going, what my fade is going to be, how low it's going to be, and how even it's going to be as I do this thing. Okay?
You want the camera on that side?
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
What do you look for when you take it that low? Like your points, your guy points.
Okay, remember when I said that placement, taper fade is below the occipital bone, right? And fade is above the occipital. So right now, as you can see, my guideline is what?
Low.
Is below the occipital bone, right? So that's where my fade is going to start. Does that make sense? Now, it's going to start there. But if I'd have started it right here on the occipital bone, then I would no longer already have